Welcome to Wholehearted Healing with Jo, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey of healing body, mind, and soul. I'm Jo, a manual osteopath and holistic health coach, here to help women like you reconnect with your authentic self, release what no longer serves you, and step into your highest potential. Together we'll explore empowering tools, have soulful conversations, and transformative practices to guide you toward wholehearted living. Whether it's emotional healing, physical alignment, or finding balance in your life, this is your space to grow, heal, and thrive. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin this beautiful journey together. Welcome back to another episode of Wholehearted Healing with Jo. Today we're going to be talking about self-sabotage, an interesting topic that I am always interested in for myself, but I think it's a common theme, obviously. I mean, we are human, that a lot of people deal with, and a lot of us can feel held back in certain areas of our life or just feel like things just never change or we can't seem to get things to change. And so we're going to talk about self-sabotage, how it might be showing up for you in different areas, and also things and ways or how basically you can start to shift that narrative and how you can start to shift the way you operate. So self-sabotage is interesting because I know a lot of people, I've seen people talk about like, self-sabotage is, maybe not, it's like some people try to frame it as like, it's not like we're trying to harm ourselves or we're trying to hold ourselves back, which I would agree with. A lot of these things that we do that are self-sabotaging are things that we do because of a subconscious reaction or action that we take. So we are not consciously self-sabotaging ourselves most often. I would say the only time it becomes consciously is when we're aware of the pattern and we're just like too afraid to do anything about it. That would be the only time that I would say you're kind of like more voluntarily controlling the ship in that sense. But self-sabotage is actually, it's any way that you kind of hold yourself back or any way that you prevent your own progress towards your goals, your ambitions. And there's always this like resistance piece to self-sabotage. And so it's like, well, why do we have resistance to growth? A lot of us want to see growth. A lot of us want our lives to be different. We want to experience good things, but why do we do this, right? And often it's like, ourselves just trying to keep ourselves safe, right? The unknown of where we're trying to go, even though it's maybe better, it's still unknown and our body doesn't know that and we don't know that. And so we come up with limiting beliefs, we come up with excuses or reasons why we shouldn't go and do that, right? And it's our way of trying to keep ourselves safe, but in the long scheme of things or the big scheme of things, it's not actually helping us move forward. And so we have to start to look at really the big question with self-sabotaging behaviors is like, why, right? Why do we do this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? And then get deeper of like, what is it protecting me from, right? What am I afraid to experience? What am I, right? Like there's all of these things. And so there's a lot of fears, limiting beliefs, our upbringings, right? These conflicts of what we think we should versus what we really want to do, right? And being comfortable versus experiencing change. So there's a lot of reasons why we get into this area of self-sabotage. And I've been here before. I always say I'm like the queen of perfectionism. I'm trying to get out of that. But I'll delay things. And especially when I have a timeline, I always use this story sometimes when I talk about perfectionism. It's probably my most recent, I would say, story of perfectionism or circumstance. Back a few years ago when I was doing my thesis on for my osteopathic certification and finishing up my schooling, I procrastinated so hard. And it was an interesting year because it was COVID. And so school wasn't operating the way it was. I'm in Canada, for those of you who don't know. So things were very restricted and it was in the heat of it. And so it had kind of just become a paper where we just had to, we could write it at home basically. And I procrastinated on it all frickin' year. And it got to the point where I had I laugh about it now because it's so silly, but And like when you look at how it turned out totally fine. But I had to hand it in like September, and August rolls around, and I've done a bit of research. Luckily, it was on a topic I was very familiar with, and I was like actively working in, so I understood it. But I procrastinated on it so hard. I was like, I'm not going to be able to get this done. Like, and I start panicking because of that. Like, I'm just like overwhelmed. I'm panicking, and I had this fear, right? I have this fear of like, what if it's not good? What if it's not good enough? Whatever, right? Turns out I wrote the paper in 5 days and passed, and everything was fine. But I could have got it done way earlier in the year and not had to worry about it at all. But I just chose to procrastinate. I chose to avoid, right, the challenge that was in front of me because I was fearful of something at that time. And it was stressful and it was overwhelming, and and it does create change, right? Because it's like you're at the very end of your program, and so that's how I find a lot of my self-sabotage comes up. I can also, I think most people could agree that like I talk myself out of things, right? Like people do that. That's a very common one, I would say. But it can show up in a lot of different ways, depending on the circumstance or the situation that you're in the first place. But that I find procrastination for me is a big one. And so we have to start to like recognize these patterns within ourselves of like, how do I show up and sabotage my own progress, my own goals? Do you give up? Do you procrastinate? Do you put off important tasks? Are you like wanting things to be absolutely perfect? Do you avoid things altogether, right? Like, what are the ways that you are holding yourself back and not showing up fully, right? And I think this can come from a few things. Like, one, we're either so overwhelmed, so our nervous systems are just like not on board with the change we're trying to make. And it comes from limiting beliefs, our subconscious beliefs, the things that are going on in the subconscious mind. And I think there's also just like, sometimes it's just like the expectation of it all. Like, again, it comes back to that like overwhelming. It feels like a lot, or it can feel like a lot to go through things. And so we have to kind of like look at it. And sometimes in the moment it feels right to do the thing, like to avoid it, to procrastinate. It feels like, well, maybe this just isn't for me. We can kind of make up these excuses and these reasons as to why we don't have to do stuff, right? But we need to understand that we're creating our own barriers to our own success, even if it comes down to like your own just personal beliefs of what you feel is possible for yourself. And so a big thing you can start to look at is like, what habits or patterns do I notice are holding me back? Look at your specific situation. Where are you trying to grow? Where are you trying to change things in your life? And, what are you doing or not doing to get yourself further in that? And maybe it literally is just this sense of belief in yourself. For myself, my goal for 2025, if you will. And I thought this was an interesting topic in general to talk about, being we're a week into January. So are you sticking to your resolutions? But my goal for January is to really work on my mindset when it comes to my goals, because that's the one area I've always known about. I've believed in it. It's not like I guess like in some ways I've been avoiding it, but I've noticed already just this first week of working on my mindset, having gratitude, reflecting on things, and doing it in the morning and doing it at night has already started to bring things in and progress in that I haven't seen leading up to this point with just strategy or logic or going about it that way. And so starting to shift some of those beliefs, starting to shift the mindset on a daily basis around your goals, what you're working towards. Those are things that we need to look at, right? Again, like I had mentioned, the subconscious mind, I think, is the biggest piece. A lot of us, like I said, are self-sabotaging, but we don't realize it because it might seem normal, or it's just what we always do, or it's what the people around us always do. And so our beliefs are huge. I've been working on some subconscious stuff. I've been learning how to clear subconscious blocks from myself. And that's been an interesting, I've only done it for myself like one session, but and you have to kind of give yourself time and your body time to adjust and that sort of thing, but in between sessions. So it's not like you can do them like every day. But we have to explore those beliefs that we have, right? Are we afraid of being seen? Are we afraid of failure? Are we afraid of success? Do we have like limitations on the type of businesses or the type of jobs or lifestyle that we want to have that maybe our parents tell us we can't have? Or, are there generational pieces that are maybe coming up where, again, it's like a thought form, a belief that maybe isn't even ours, right? It's not even ours from this lifetime. It can be from other lifetimes that are coming through. And all of these things can impact us and stunt our growth. And I think a lot of times when we're anywhere where we're self-sabotaging is an invitation for us as a human to look at it and to ask ourselves, how can I overcome this? I think it's an invitation for us to, this is a block, this is a barrier that you're here to learn, right? You're here to explore this. You're here to look at this. And it's not that all of our lives have to be the same. It's that, is your life what you want it to be, right? And if there's things getting in the way of that, like what are those things? Are they choices you've made, situations you stay in, right? All of these things that start to then add up and compound and create our world and our environment and how we see things. And some people will stay stuck for a very long time, potentially their whole life in certain areas, and other people will choose to grow and choose to evolve. I'm always looking to grow and evolve, but like I noticed with the subconscious stuff, it took a lot for me I was really excited about learning about it, but it took a lot for me to go into it and actually do the process on myself. I was nervous, I was worried, and it's not even really that I was excited about the change it would create, but it was all the stuff it was going to bring up in the meantime, right? Because sometimes we have to kind of get into it, go into it, and really dive into, what is this stemming from? What part of my experience in my life is this stemming from? And sometimes they're not the most exciting things coming through, right? Like, it's things we've suppressed or things we haven't fully processed or grieved or whatever, right? That we have to go through so that we can rewrite the story so that we can move forward. And so I think reflecting on things from your past is important. Finding ways to release subconscious work, doing those types of things, even breath work, like releasing the things just even from our physical body, tensions, right? Like all of these ways that we can do different things to shift the energy. And then once we're aware of what is the thing that's creating the self-sabotaging behavior, then we can start to look at like, okay, how can we shift in general the thought, the belief, right? The inner dialogue that we have towards the situation, towards ourselves. And so we can start to replace the criticism, the harshness that we give ourselves, and we can start to give ourselves better thoughts. The biggest piece and this would be like affirmations, you could do mantras, you could do like journaling even, right? Like writing certain things out. But I think the big thing is we don't go back to like why we're there in the first place, so that affirmations can feel kind of silly if we're only just trying to do affirmations. We have to dive a little deeper than that, and then we can bring up the affirmations to rewrite the story. And so I think self-sabotage is a big experience for us to be able to just process like what we've been avoiding and what we're afraid of and how did we get here, basically. And so you have to be willing to do the deeper work. You have to be willing to look in areas that maybe you've been afraid to look at, and also reassure yourself that you're safe, right? That you will be fine. You're going to live through this. You're going to work through this, right? It can feel like a lot in the moment, but once we process these things, we can feel a lot lighter. And as we move through these things, like, then you start to build trust. You start to build like consistency with yourself. You start to show up for yourself more. And so you trust yourself more, and you're able to just be confident in what it is that you're doing. You can start to build new habits because you trust yourself, right? Like, how many times do we go in and try to make habits and we just fall apart because it's just like, well, I knew I wasn't going to stick to it anyway, right? We just know that we're not going to show up for ourselves. And so we have to start really showing up for ourselves, be accountable for ourselves, and stick to the things we say we're going to stick to. But sometimes we need that deeper work in order for us to be able to stick to the thing. And then we can be like adamant that we stick to ourselves, or stick to the thing that we're trying to work on. So a couple things you can do with building self-trust is starting small. So when we're building new habits, we're trying to create new rituals, we're trying to get out of the sabotaging behavior, start really small. Even going back to like when I wrote my paper, I had to just be like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to like work on this one paragraph, or I'm just going to work on this one thing. And once I get started, then things just get rolling, right? So then you start to see more progress because it's just this small thing you decide to do and you eliminate the overwhelm from it. Even with habits, it can be like, okay, I'm just going to wake up at this time every day instead of giving yourself 20 things to do, right? Just start with one little piece and track your progress, right? Celebrate yourself. I don't do this enough. And when I do start doing it, I'm like, holy shit, I do a lot of good things, especially during the day, right? And so it's like, track your progress, check things off. Like if you're a list person like me, just like check it off the list, right? But we need to avoid the overwhelm with it when we're creating new habits, because we just need to be consistent. We don't need to be perfect. We don't need things to look exactly the way that we want them to look right off the bat. That stuff will come, but we just got to start to be consistent so that it's ingrained in us. And then those become simple and we can add more things. And I've even been trying to do this with like my content and my posting schedules and that sort of thing, is just being more consistent with what I'm doing, so that I can start to see the compounding results of that. And so again, you can put this in any area of your life. And yeah, you can work through self-sabotaging stuff, shows up everywhere. And so you can work on it in any area of your life. You just have to pinpoint again, originally where it's coming from. What am I afraid of? What is the block here? And sit and reflect on that in itself. And then other things that can be supportive are like people in your life who are maybe going through the same things. Or let's say you have a fitness goal and you have like a friend or whatever you go to the gym with, right? All these little things like to keep us accountable are really good. You can also join groups, communities, have mentors, right? That's obviously what I help women with, is working with them through these blocks, these challenges, whether it's their health, their personal life, and getting them to a place where they feel happy and it's where they want to be. And it's living a life that they have always wanted to live, but have struggled to get there. And so I help people with the physical, mental, and the emotional sides of things to kind of get you all on board, like body, mind, and soul, right? To get everything back into alignment. And sometimes we need, more physical treatments or physical, support, I guess, through different, physical systems in our body. Other times we need more mindset, belief type things. Other times we need more emotional release, support, and sometimes just a different way of looking at things, right? So finding people that you can connect with, but also that you can rely on for support, is going to help you be less likely to sabotage and more likely to stay on track. And it just kind of keeps you in the rhythm a little bit more. I've always found that even with my business and stuff. I have a business mentor, and just hopping on those calls like helps keep me on track and focused on like, what am I doing? Not that I don't sabotage certain things along the way, because again, I'm human, but it helps me at least not set it and forget it and eliminate it, because I just decided to like throw it out the window. As long as I show up to those things, I'm kind of like always in that mindset, which helps for sure. Even if I'm having like a bad week, a bad day, whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much the biggest thing. Again, biggest takeaways for self-sabotage is that sometimes if we can't change our habits, there's probably a deeper root of a subconscious block that's going on there. Especially if you're feeling stuck in your life and you haven't been able to change something, if you've been working really hard to change it, there's probably a subconscious block there that's happening. And so releasing that is going to be important. And yeah, just being kind and being compassionate and gentle and patient with yourself as you move through these things. The biggest key to a lot of things is awareness. Once we have that awareness, we can start to make changes, be more conscious about it, right? Because we're aware of it. And you'll start to see things shift, and you'll start to see things come into your awareness that can support you and that can help you, whether it's a person, a course, a book, whatever the thing is, someone even just talking about it on like social media, and you're like, wow, I was literally just thinking about this. Like, I've had that happen so many times. Something that's relevant to what you're going through, things will come into your world. They'll come into your environment. I've had it happen personally with multiple things. Even things I just want to learn will sometimes pop up. And so it's being open to those things and being open to the change and not being afraid of the change. But definitely look into subconscious blocks, because that will be a big piece. And as I kind of go through, I'm kind of like just dipping my toes into the subconscious blocks. It's something I definitely very much want to learn about. The process that I'm learning right now has been quite interesting. So I think it'd like to be something that I start to incorporate in my coaching programs. I just have to kind of get to that point. Obviously, it takes time, but it's definitely something I believe in and something I'm aware of. And it's powerful. It's huge. And so I think especially when people have done a lot of things and not everything has worked, then definitely subconscious roots and subconscious blocks are going to be important to take a look at. But that's pretty much what I got for today. So hopefully that resonated for you. Let me know, do you have any subconscious blocks or just self-sabotaging behaviors that you kind of know, or just like inadvertently like what you fall back into, right? Patterns, habits that you catch yourself in, and you're just like, why do I do this? Or maybe you know why you do it, right? Definitely share those, especially if you're on YouTube. You can share those kind of down below in the comment section. Otherwise, if you're just like listening to this on a podcast, you won't be able to share it, but you can feel free to message me on Instagram. I will always love to chat with you guys, see what's going on. And then as well, if you're interested in any of my coaching, I have one-on-one sessions, like single sessions that are called physical and emotional breakthrough sessions. So we deep dive basically with you on what's going on. And then if you want more, bigger support, longer support, I have my group coaching container for Elevate Her, which is 12 weeks. I also have my private Elevate Her coaching, which is also 12 weeks. So basically private and group coaching. So if any of those are something you're interested in or want to learn more about, you can either hop over to my Instagram, check out my posts. You can also message me on Instagram. That's the easiest way probably to get a hold of me. And then I'm on the most. But other than that, that's pretty much all I got. I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to 2025. And let me know if you've got any goals for 2025. I would love to know what they are. And I will be back next week for another episode. Not sure what it'll be, but we'll see. And yeah, we'll get back and have another conversation. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.